Today our notes are going to be done virtually, so please take out your blue packet. We're looking at page 16. We're going to do 1.5 fractional exponents. And we're going to start by doing a little bit of graphing. I actually started filling in the table here, and to do that I had to use my calculator to evaluate what number to the 1/2 power was. So on my calculator I have a caret key. That's that little thing that looks like the top of an arrow, pointing up. That caret key allows me to plug in any power that I want to, but that's on my calculator. Some other calculators, depending on the kind that you have x raised to the y power or y raised to the x power, or some of them even have this like little box and box. If your calculator doesn't have one of those options, you're going to want to try a different calculator. Maybe wait and just fill it in with the stuff that I have here, and then when you get to school you can borrow one of mine and we can show how to use that. But I went ahead and I plugged this in. I put -1 because it was a negative number. I made sure I put parentheses around it, so -1 caret, and then I did parentheses 1/2, and I just did 1 divided by 2 because that's what 1/2 is. Hit enter, and that one came up as a domain error. It's an error. That means I can't find that value. But the rest of them came out pretty nice. 2 was a decimal, not a big deal. So I want to take those values. You can fill in your table. I want to take those values and convert those into points on a graph. 0, 0, 1, 1, 2, 1.4, and 4, 2, and I'll connect those points, and I'm hoping this looks familiar to you. In your notes we had a section where we went over the function families, and this graph looks a lot like the squared function. And so that means to me that x to the 1/2 is the same as the square root of x. So the square root function, I should say, I called it squared. So what type of graph is it? That's a square root graph. X to the 1/2 is the same as the square root of x. We're going to do that with x to the 1/3 as well. X to the 1/3, if I use my caret key as well, and when I plug those in I get -2, -1, 0, 1, and 2. Again, you can try it on your calculator or just copy that down. We'll talk more in depth about it. And when I graph that one, -8, -2, -1, -1, 0, 0, 1, 1, and then 8, 2, and I sketch this graph, it also looks like one of the function family graphs that we did on that first day. And this one actually is the cube root function. So x to the 1 is the same as the cube root of x. And so I can also evaluate 8 to the 1/3 by using my cube root key on my calculator. And we discussed this already. The cube root key is above the caret. I would do 3 second, hit that value, that would make it the cube root of 8, and I get my answer 2. So 8 to the 1/3 and the cube root of 8 will give me the same answer. Knowing that I can use my calculator a bit to evaluate the numbers is going to be very helpful. But if I have values that are variables, then I'm going to have to take a different approach. And so it turns out that the numerator tells us how many times we're going to multiply it together, and the denominator tells us the root on the radical. That's a radical. So I would rewrite this as the cube root of x squared. That's how many times I'm going to multiply that together. The cube root came from the denominator being 3, and then I'm squaring it. So this one here is the square root, which I don't need to put a little 2. I can put a 2, but I don't need to. The square root of x raised to the 5th. Again, the numerator tells me how many times I'm going to be multiplying it together. The denominator tells me the root on the radical. So we have a little summary of that, just basically what we talked about. Sometimes I'm going to be able to figure this out mathematically. If it's a number, I can do the square root of 4 to the 5th power. I figure out the square root of 4 is 2, 2 to the 5th power, and I can figure out that math by either doing the repeated multiplication or plugging into my calculator. But I can also just depend on my calculator. 9 to the 1/2 is the same as the square root of 9, so I just do the square root. I use my square root key, it's above my squared, of 9, and I can get my answer. Oops, let's try that again. Second square root, ooh, come on, it's not letting me do that. Second square root of 9, and then I get my answer. It looks like I did plug it. So this one is 3. I have another one, the square root of 25. So this is second square root of 25. Hit enter, and I get my answer. That's 5. This one, because it's 1/3, that's the cube root of 64. So again, I can take my cube root above my caret, so I could go 3 second cube root of 64, hit enter, and get my answer. That's 4. But I could also do it with the power. I could also raise that to 64 raised to, parenthesis, 1/3 is 1 divided by 3 power. I have to put that 1/3 in parentheses, otherwise it will only raise it to the first power and then divide it by 3. So it's important how I plug it in. You have to be careful of that. So I can get my value that way as well. Not as easy again when I have a variable. All I can write on this one is the denominator gives me my root, and then the numerator gives me how many times I'm going to be multiplying that. So that's the 5th root of x squared. So this next one is the cube root of 8 squared. So I'm going to find the cube root of 8. So 3 second root, that's how I plug it in mine, of 8. I get that answer, and then I can square it. Take that answer, square it, and I get 4. Again, I can't stress this enough. I could plug that in as, if I'm working with the number, I can just plug that in as 8 raised to the fraction 2 divided by 3 power, or parenthesis 2 divided by 3 power. What did I get? 4. Matches what I got when I did it the other way. So with the numbers, you have kind of a couple different ways to do it. I'm going to do this one as just right away go in with the fraction. So I have 16 raised to, so that's my caret key, 16 raised to, parenthesis, this is 7 divided by 2 power, 7/2 power, I plug it in. Ooh boy, that's a big one. So this one is 16,384. That's my final answer on that one. Now if that bugs you and you're like, oh, I don't know, that doesn't seem right. It is the square root of 16 raised to the 7th power, or square root of 16 is 4. 4 raised to the 7th power. Let's do that. We can do that as repeated multiplication. 4 times 4 times 4 times 4 times 4 times 4. Got to count and make sure I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 times 4 times, oops, no, then that's it, because I had 6. Okay, so I gotta count that again. See why plugging this in isn't always the efficient way. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Okay, so I need to delete that one. All right, drum roll please. Let's see if I get it. Yes, I did get it to match. That wasn't very efficient. Much more efficient. 4 raised to the 7th power. Much easier. That's a nicer way to do it. Repeated multiplication, fine, but if I don't have to do it, I won't do it. All right, so our job is going to be to simplify these values. So I'm going to be using all those rules that I did before. I'm going to talk through it just like we did with our power rules last time. Remember, this is 8 to the first power, m to the first power. So a power on the outside, I multiply. So that's 8 to the 1/3, m to the 1/3. Well, 8 to the 1/3 is a number. I can figure that out. I can either do that as the cube root, or I can raise it 8 raised to the 1/3 power. Or maybe you know it off the top of your head. So that's 2 times the cube root of m. So the values I'm going to try and simplify. All right, next, remember when we have stuff on the top and the bottom, where are there more? How many more is how I like to do it. 1 is more than 1/2, so I'm going to do y to the 1 minus 1/2 power. Where are there more? How many more? There are more on the top, so I took everything off the bottom. I'll replace it with a 1. So when I do that subtraction, again, it's 1 minus 1/2. I just depend on my calculator key to help me out. I get y to the 1/2 over 1. I don't need the 1 on the bottom. Remember, if I replace it on the top, I need the 1 on the top. If I don't need it on the bottom, so this is the square root of y. Final answer. All right, now, how do I deal with negative powers? Well, negative powers, I'm going to move those up to the top. You watched that in the video before your quiz. Negative powers move up to the top. We've discussed that before. So a negative power, this is m to the 1/2 over 2. Well, I don't like that fraction power, so I'm going to rewrite that as the square root of m over 2. Nothing more I can do. I call that one done. Let's do this one again. Remember my power on 16, where I have a power on the power. I meant not this problem again, but do that where I have to bring that power through, just like number 11. I'm going to do m to the 2 times 1/4 over 16 to the 1 times 1/4. So that's m, again, if you can do that in your head, great. 2 times 1/4 gives me 1/2, so that's m to the 1/2 over, I'm going to just raise that right there, 16 raised to the 1 times 1/4 power. I just did that whole thing, plugged it all right in there. 1 times 1/4, put it all in parentheses, I hit equals, and I got 2. So my answer is the square root of m over 2. Hey, that looks familiar. Oh, that's because that was that last problem we had. So 2 different problems, look a little different, came out to the same answer. That's not unheard of. So bring my power through, 2 to the 1 times 4, x to the 1/2 times 4. 2 to the 4th, I might want to, again, evaluate 2 raised to the 4th power. I can use that caret key. That's 16x squared. And one last one, I've got a -1/2 power. This again is something that we talked about. One way to treat this, if it's on a whole parenthesis, is I can just flip the whole thing and make that positive. Then I'm still going to bring that through. 2 to the 1/2 over x to the 2 times 1/2. That's the square root of 2 over x, 2 times 1/2 is 1, so x to the 1st, I can leave it like that. On the next page in your note, you're going to find, or in your notes packet, you're going to find a summary of all the rules, everything that we've gone through. I'd like you to take a look at that and use that as you work through your homework. Your homework assignment is 1.5. I want you to do the evens or odds. That's it for that, 1.5, evens or odds. And then I will see you next time we have class together. I hope all is going well. We'll talk soon.